Hello Summoners and welcome back to another Pro Guides video. My name is Nathaning and we'll be talking about the 5 sleeper OP picks and builds that you should be abusing for free LP. You definitely know the popular OP picks and builds since they are all over social media, including our own YouTube channel. But in this video, we'll be looking at some of the lesser known builds and picks today. We'll be starting things off with Pyke mid. At one point, Pyke mid was an insanely strong laner, having so much sustain that you basically could never push him out of the lane, while also having the ability to kill you in an all-in if he landed a single hook. After a lot of tinkering with this kid, he fell out of the meta, and he's almost exclusively played as a support for the majority of the season. But now, due to shifts in the meta, Pyke mid has made a bit of a comeback. It's pretty rare to see, but when it is picked, it does super well. As far as playing the lane goes, Pyke has some insane all-in power. With a burst of damage from Hail of Blades, you can very easily get some cheesy kills at level 2, and in the right matchup, even as early as level 1. Generally speaking, you'll start with Q, but sometimes against a really squishy opponent where CC is a guaranteed kill, you can take E and just dash in on them as soon as they move up for their first CS. Since this wave clear is like me, really poor, you'll generally want to try and threaten your opponent with these all-in attempts as often as possible. If you spend the entire lane trying to farm, you'll be shoved in under your turret. And being trapped under your turret is the last thing that you want on Pyke, cause then you won't really be able to abuse his roams. Pyke mid isn't just good at roaming, it's entirely core to making him work as a mid laner. The reason for that is his ultimate. You really want to be able to score some ultimate takedowns in early skirmishes and ganks so you can go ahead and snowball both you and your teammates fast and hard. Pyke without a lead is pretty useless, so it's crucial that you learn to pull them off consistently. Now let's take a look at the build that you'll be running for Pyke mid. For your runes, take Hail of Blade, Cheap Shot, Eyeball Collection, Ultimate Hunter, Second Wind, and Unflinching, with the set runes being double adaptive force and either armor or magic resistance. For your items, start with Adorned Shield and go for Lucidity Boots, Duskblade of Drakthar, and then Yumu's Ghostblade. After that, you'll want Edge of Night and Death's Stance, then finish things off with either Guardian Angel or a Serpent's Fang. Part of what makes sleeper OP picks so successful is the fact that nobody plays them. Objectively speaking, they may not be better than or even as good as the most popular picks, but when your opponents don't really know how to play against them, you get that extra edge in a fight. But that alone isn't quite enough to win you all of your solo queue games. You also need to have the skills to get those early leads and know how to use those leads to win your games, and that's exactly what we try to teach you over at ProGuides.com. Our top tier coaches over on ProGuides.com can help you figure out exactly what you need to work on. They're available 24/7, so it's never really a bad time to come try one out. I promise there's at least one that specializes in exactly what you're looking for. These guys have spent years reaching the top of the ladder, so why wouldn't you want to try stealing all their solo queue tips and tricks? All you have to do is click the link in the description. Now let's get back into the video. The second build that we're going to be looking at is a tankier build path for Twitch. Twitch has been pretty well lately, with build options for playing him to mow down entire teams with Kraken Slayer and Hurricane, or to take a more assassin-like route with Gale Force and the Collector. But sometimes you end up playing Twitch against teams with a lot of unavoidable damage and or diving comps, and then there's nothing you can really do to avoid being blown up. And that's where this build comes in. There are a couple of variations to the build, and we'll cover them more in depth when we take a look at the full build in just a minute, but in general, this build will start out like any other normal ADC. You'll start out by building damage, so that way you'll be able to keep up with the other ADCs in the early bot lane fights and skirmishes. It isn't until your core is done that you start adding some beefiness, and that way you can survive team fights in the mid to late game stages. Obviously, even with a tankier build, you're still Twitch. You'll pop out of stealth in front of the entire enemy team, and you'll be jumped on and blown up. The point of this build is to make it so you don't instantly get one-shot by some sort of enemy dive champion simply because they can flash on you. Now, let's take a look at the build that you'll want. For your runes, run Lethal Tempo, Presence of Mind, Alacrity, Coup de Grace, Taste of Blood, and Ravenous Hunter, with the set runes being Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Armor. For your items, start with Adorned Blade and then rush Berserker's Greaves. In most games, your core build will be the standard Kraken Slayer and Hurricane, but if you're laning against an AV champion, go for Wits End first over Kraken. Your third and fourth items will be Titanic Hydra and Black Cleaver. If you're doing the standard Kraken Slayer route, your last item will be something like Guardian Angel, Randuin's Omen, or Infinity Edge, whichever is best for your game. If you want Wits End first, you can go Kraken Slayer last if you want more damage, but if you want even more safety, pick up a Shield Bow instead. The next sleeper OP pick that we have for you is Heimerdinger. I know this sounds troll, but honestly, hear me out. Heimerdinger is basically an alternative to Zyra. He has good pushing power, good poke, and if the enemy tries to take an all-in fight, he has insane trade back potential, if they can even net a kill at all. But like Zyra, Heimer spikes really hard with just Leandries and then provides both burst and sustained damage, while also bringing a lot of disruption potential to fights with his ult grenade. But the real selling point to this pick is his laning phase. There aren't really any 2v2 lanes that you have to worry about as Heimerdinger unless your ADC just refuses to fight with you. The general flow of the lane goes like this. Your turrets help your ADC outshelf the enemy bot lane, and once your opponents are under their tower, you pelt them with W poke, which you'll be maxing. Against low threat opponents, you can try to land grenades for extra poke, but if you're against aggro supports that can engage, never waste your E's cooldown. Instead, just wait for them to go in. Once they do, use your E to both disengage and trade back a ton of damage to them. Now, I do want to say that Heimer is not an equal replacement to Zyra. I think Zyra is the hands down strongest support as far as lane dominance goes. But if she's banned or you just want to spice things up, Heimerdinger is a similar-ish option. Now, here's a build that you'll want. For your runes, take Comet, Mana Float, Absolute Focus, Scorch, Perfect Timing, and Biscuit Delivery, with the stat runes being Double Adaptive Force and Armor. For your items, start with the spell Thief's Edge and then build into Leandri's Anguish, Sword Store's Shoes, and Zhonya's Hourglass. Next up, pick up your Void Staff and then finish things off with either Wardstone, Morellonomicon, or if you're really greedy, Rabadon's Death Cap. The next sleeper build that we'll be talking about is yet another bot lane pick, this time a change up for Kog'Maw. Kog'Maw has been a really solid pick lately, consistently being in the top 5 and sometimes even top 3 picks for ADCs in the last several patches. But a lot of people tunnel really hard on how well Kog'Maw synergizes with Ginsu's Rageblade, and they make it their go-to every single game no matter what. And there's a good reason for that. It really does give them insane DPS, especially if you're against really tanky targets and or if you're building Wit's End. But there's another item that has insane synergy with Kog'Maw's W, Navori Quickblades. While Ginsu's helps you pump out insane DPS while W is going, once your timer is up, Kog'Maw becomes a short-range vulnerable target who can no longer do so much damage, even if he does get in range of his target. When you go Quick Blades, your W's cooldown resets before the buff expires. This means that you'll be able to constantly rain out huge amounts of damage from a safe distance. This interaction will be even better on 11.23, with the lethal temple changes giving you more range as long as you can keep it stacked up. Now with all of that said, I do want to point out something. I'm not saying this is definitely better than Ginsu's. That item is still best when you're dealing with beefier enemy teams. But you should be definitely going for the Quick Blades build when you're dealing with squishier foes or the rest of your team is magic damage heavy, so the enemy team will be itemizing MR. Now let's take a look at the full build that you'll want. For your runes, run Lethal Tempo, Presence of Mind, Alacrity, Coup de Grace, Taste of Blood, and Ravenous Hunter, with the stat runes being Attack Speed, Adaptive Force, and Armor. For your items, start with the Doran's Blade, and then rush Berserker's Greave, and then build either Shield Bow or Kraken Slayer and Runin's Hurricane. After that, you'll go for a start of this build, Navori Quick Blades, and Infinity Edge. Your last item is situational, but some good choices are Bloodthirster, Mortal Reminder, and Mercurial Scimitar. Okay, I'm not saying Ginsu's is bad, I've already said above that it's very good on Kog'Maw. But people shouldn't just tunnel so hard on building an item on a champion every single game just because of a certain synergy. Vayne is the exact same way. Some games it's better to go for Infinity Edge for massive crits. And that brings us to today's question of the day. What do you think is the most overrated item or rune in the game? For me, I'd probably have to say Biscuit Delivery. There are certain champions where it is a very good rune, but usually, I think the outcome of a lane is determined a lot more by extra sustain. Now, that's just me, and we want to hear from you. So let us know down in the comments below. Now, without further ado, let's get to our last entry. Finishing off our list, we have the right way to build Fiora. As one of the biggest abusers of Gore Drinker and Conqueror this season, Fiora was hit hard when both of those took a hit on 11.21. She's still an insanely hard scaling champion, but a lot of her consistency was taken away. You just aren't guaranteed to be OP at your 2-item spike by leaning on those crutches. But it's not like Gore Drinker is the only mythic that Fiora can abuse. Shredbreaker and Divine Sunderer are both really good on her. And while Conqueror is definitely the better rune once you get to scale late game, Grasp has always been a safer option for better trading in lane. Generally speaking, Shredbreaker will be your more standard option. The slow makes it very easy to proc all 4 vitals after ulting, and is definitely the better team fight option, since it allows you to stick to high priority targets so you aren't just kited to death. But if you're laning against a big fat tank or juggernaut, it may be a better choice to go for Divine Sunderer, especially if you're primarily going to be sticking to side laning for most of the game. Now let's take a look at the full build that you'll be running. For your runes, take Grasp, Demolish, Conditioning, Unflinching, Presence of Mind, and Bloodline, the stat runes being Double Adaptive Force and Armor or Magic Resistance. For your items, start with either Doran's Blade or Doran's Shield, and then build into whatever mythic is best suited for your game, based on what we talked about before. Then go for either Steel Caps, Merc Treads, Lucidity Boots, and then Ravenous Hydra. After Hydra, you'll go for Syrinx Gauge if you have a Stridebreaker, or Hullbreaker if you went for Divine Sunderer. Then go for Death's Dance and either Guardian Angel or Chempunk Chainsword. And that wraps up the sleeper OP builds that you're missing out on for patch 11.23. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, be sure you're subbed so you never miss out on our meta guides, and you're always in the loop on what the best picks are. Remember, let us know what item or runes you think is going to be super overrated down in the comments below. And one last thing, don't forget to check out our Discord in the description box below, where you can go ahead and discuss League further or just hang out and be a part of the community. I can't wait to see you guys back in the next video, but until then, good luck on the Rift, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.